Hey geometry students, in this video we're going to be taking a look at the midpoint formula. There's actually two versions of the midpoint formula. One of them we've encountered before when we first talked about midpoints. The two versions are for the midpoint of a number line, and then we're also going to talk about midpoints on a coordinate plane when we're talking about two dimensions. Let's go ahead and dive in and get started. I think you're going to find this lesson is pretty easy and straightforward. The formulas are really easy to follow. First of all, what is a midpoint? For 2 points on a number line, A and B, the midpoint is the point that's equidistant from both A and B. For that point to be equidistant, the two segments that make up the line, AC and BC, have to be congruent to each other. So AC and BC have to be the same distance. If you want to see a visual picture of that, here it is. AC and BC are the same distance. Those two segments are congruent, and therefore C is the midpoint of AB. How do we find that midpoint? Well, to find it, we have to find the position of A on the number line. That's what this A is. The position of B on the number line, and then we add them together and divide by 2. It's like we're finding the average of two positions. If A is negative, we plug it into the formula as a negative number. If B is negative, we do the same thing. So if A was like -2 and B was 8, it'd be -2 plus 8 is 6 divided by 2. The midpoint would be 3. Okay? In this case, let's assume that this number line here starts at 0. A would be at point 0. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. B would be at 6. 0 plus 6 is 6, divided by 2 is 3, so my midpoint would be 3. Now, on a number line, it is extremely easy to find the midpoint. I don't think you're going to have any problems calculating midpoint from a number line. When we talk about a coordinate plane, though, the formula gets a little bit more complicated. The midpoint M of segment AB that has endpoints x1, y1, and x2, y2. These are coordinates on a coordinate plane, right? The midpoint has the coordinates that are given by the formula, x1 plus x2 over 2, y1 plus y2 over 2. Now, this really isn't that much harder. What is a coordinate plane? Except it's two number lines that intersect each other at a right angle. And how do we find the midpoint on a number line? We add together the two positions on the number line, divide by 2. We find their average. Well, that's all that we're doing here. It's just we're doing one of the axes, or one number line at a time. We're doing the x-axis first, x1 plus x2 divided by 2. In this case, I see that this point is at 2, 8. And then this point over here is at 8, 4. Okay? Now, first of all, I'm just going to ignore the y-coordinate. And I'm just going to focus on the x-coordinate. X-coordinate 2, x-coordinate 8. Where's the midpoint? Well, I can tell you on the x-axis, the midpoint is going to be halfway between whatever the x-coordinates are. Halfway between 2 and 8. And how do I find the halfway point? 2 plus 8 is 10. Divided by 2 is 5. On the x-axis, the midpoint is going to have an x-coordinate of 5. Now, what about on the y-axis? Same concept. I'm going to focus on the y-axis as a number line. I'm going to look at y1 and then y2. I'm going to add them together and find the average. It doesn't matter, by the way, whether I use point A as x1, y1 or point B as x1, y1. As long as I use the other one as x2, y2, it will work out regardless of which one I choose first. Okay, so let's look at the y's. I notice that this has a y of 8. This has a y of 4. 4 plus 8 is 12. Divided by 2 is 6. My midpoint for this segment is going to be 5, 6. And that's the coordinate of this midpoint point. How did I find that? I found the average on the y-axis. And then I found the average on the x-axis first. And then I found the average on the y-axis. And then I just wrote my midpoint out as that x value, comma, that y value, because that gives me the two coordinates. All right, that was a short and sweet lesson. We're going to move on in the next video to some practice examples of how to do this.